Hello summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathaning and today we'll be talking about the 5 ways to make the most out of your solo queue games. We all have goals on League of Legends. Some of you just want to reach gold for the rewards, while others want to reach higher peaks, maybe even grinding their way all the way to Challenger. But if you're just throwing yourself into solo queue, grinding till your mind goes numb, you probably aren't going to actually reach your goal, or at the very least, it's going to take a lot longer than it should. Hopefully, with this video, you'll learn to actually learn from your games rather than just spinning your wheels. Before we get into it, I just want to say that if you're really serious about climbing, focusing on what you can do for yourself is so important, but you should definitely be using the resources that we have to offer as well. At ProGuides.com, we have courses from all your favorite pro streamers and pros like Core JJ, Aframu, and XSmithy to help you really understand how to play your role. And if you want a more personalized one-on-one experience, our top-tier coaches are available 24/7 to help you anytime that you want it. Whichever option you choose, stop spinning your wheels on your own and get on the fast track to higher elo today. Now, let's get into things, shall we? The first thing that we're going to be talking about is understanding your skill level. If you want to actually improve at League of Legends, you have to learn to accept that you are where you are for a reason. I mean, for me, I'm only here because I just don't like playing ranked, I think. A diamond level player isn't going to be held back in silver because of his troll teammates. A diamond level player would be able to carry those players. Aside from that, both teams are just as likely to get bad players and trolls on their team, so it should eventually even out. If you deserve to climb, you will. Now, once you've accepted that and grounded yourself a little bit, you need to understand that there are limits to what you can do based on how good you are. For example, champions like Camille and Lee Sin excel at the highest level. A diamond +1 trick on those champions can pretty much solo carry the game, albeit in different ways. A good Lee Sin can secure an early lead for his team, so even if his laners aren't better players, the gold that he spoon feeds to them translates to an easily won game. Meanwhile, a good Camille won't have a ton of early impact, but come mid to late game can pretty much 1v9 if played perfectly. But in lower elos, few people come close to the mechanical ceiling on these champions. The result is a mediocre performance, and a mediocre performance on those champions just isn't nearly as impactful as what you would be doing on a champion like Malphite or Zac with the same or even less effort. I'm not saying you have to become a tank slave to climb, but the point is you're gonna have to put in a lot more effort to learn and play these champions well. That is definitely possible, but it may still be a big time saver and make games overall more enjoyable to play something that suits you a bit better. The second point that we're going to be talking about is VOD reviewing your games. Plenty of players talk about doing this, but the vast majority don't actually know what VOD reviewing is about. It's not just about watching your replays to see where you died and where you got the kills, or finding the spot where your team throws a game. Real VOD reviews are a little bit deeper than that. Anybody can look at the game and say, oh, well, should have died there. But you need to be able to identify some things about each death to actually learn anything. First, was it an avoidable death? If so, how could you prevent it from happening again? Boarding earlier, better wave management, less aggression when you don't know where the jungler is, or maybe it's just something else entirely. Maybe the death was just the result of you making a play and it not working out. Again, look at why it went wrong. Was it just an unwinnable fight and you measured poorly? Well, that's just poor game sense. Did you misplay mechanically? That's the most forgivable type of death. And with more practice, you'll be able to execute it better next time. Was it a play where you needed your team to be on the same page as you and they dropped the ball? In that case, the lesson is to stay away from high variance plays. High variance basically means that you're going for a play where you aren't in full control of the outcome due to the external circumstances that can change the result. For example, you go for a level 3 dive that requires coordination in CCing and bursting down your target, and also perfect tower aggro juggling. Another is going for random 3v3 fights over Scuttle Crab, or maybe you're just relying on your top laner TPing before the enemy top. When VOD reviewing, these are the plays that you need to be on the lookout for, and it's not just the ones that fail. You also need to learn to identify the plays that you are making that are bad but work out anyway. This is the reason coaching is such a valuable resource. It gets another pair of eyes on you. An objective third-party review of your gameplay can definitely help you spot some things that you may have missed. And just remember, we have the best coaches in the market over at ProGuides, and they're available 24/7 to help you at any time. Our next point is to instill consistency in your gameplay. This takes a bit from both of our previous points. Referring back to our example of Lee Sin and Camille, their super high level mechanical kits means that fights can have a lot of variance. Even the best players combo the wrong way and miss skill shots after all. But with somebody like Malphite, you quite literally don't have anything to miss unless you're playing at 10k DPI and ults on the other side of your screen. Playing a champion that is easier mechanically means that you can focus your mind on decision making. This makes it significantly easier to learn what you're doing wrong and what you're doing right. For example, again, we'll compare the scenario with Camille versus the same thing with Malphite. If a bot lane fight breaks out and you react with your TP as Camille and the fight goes wrong, you have to analyze everything about it. Should you have led with your W, then your E, and then your R? E, W combo, then R right away, and then E afterwards? Was it just an unwinnable fight altogether? I mean, with so many questions, it's hard to tell whether you played it wrong, your teammates failed to follow up, and most importantly, it's hard to know if it was just a bad TP to go for at all. As a result, you don't really learn anything, and you're just as likely to go for the same play over and over with the coin flip results each and every time. Then compare that to a situation with Malphite. There's no rocket science here. If you lose a fight after hitting a good Malphite ultimate, the TP was bad, and you need to go back and review what was bad about it. Maybe your bot lane is already low on HP and mana, and then, well, if that's the case, you can learn to look for that next time. Or maybe you TP to help a weak early game lane, like Ezreal and Janna, while the enemy bot lane is strong early, like Leona and Draven. You'll quickly learn to measure the strength of both sides before you go for TP plays. Now, this isn't all to say that you absolutely can't play the harder champions that we just mentioned, but in line with this point, finding consistency, you need to find the lower variant styles of playing. For example, as Camille, that means that you're playing for yourself during your laning phase and not using TPs to put the rest of your team ahead. Later in the game, stick to side laning most of the time. You're a lot more in control of your own fate when you get to 1v1 against your opponent rather than hoping that your team does everything right. The next point that we'll be talking about is setting realistic goals for yourself. For one, you probably want to focus on the elo that you're actually likely going to get at the end of the season. It's cool to have a long-term dream, but you won't just go from silver to master just by hoping for it. Start with the baby steps. There's no rush when it comes to self-improvement. You're only at a race against yourself. Trust me, as long as you can see yourself improve, then you're doing a good job. Just take little steps to get there. Everybody has to go at their own pace. I've seen students get coaching and go from gold to diamond in half a season, meanwhile some take 2 or 3 seasons to finally reach it. So instead of just grinding while focusing at the end point, break things up into segments. If you're silver 2, make your goal to be silver 1 in the next week or 2. If you still haven't made it by then it's time to apply our previous steps. Are you VOD reviewing your games and identifying the cause of your losses? And don't just look at the losses. Look at the wins and see what you're doing in those games and see if you can replicate it. Are you watching ProGuides? I guess if you're watching this video and you made it this far, then the answer would obviously be yes. But we are here to help you improve, and I promise that if you follow all of these steps so far, you'll probably see a lot of improvements in your life, as well as in League of Legends. If you're constantly reviewing what you're doing and ironing out the inconsistencies, you will improve, and you will reach your goals. On that note, setting goals isn't just about what elo you want to reach. You should also be setting certain performance metrics that you want to achieve. By that, I mean stat lines like your kill participation, CS per minute, damage dealt, and KDA. League is a game full of variables, so a lot can happen that affect any or all of those stats each game. But still, you should be able to work towards doing better on average in those areas. It's hard to give an exact answer as to what good stats are, since different roles and champions have different things that they play for. For example, a split-pushing Tryndamere or Yorick will rarely be as high damage as a poking champion like Ziggs or Zyra. And to link this back to our first point, you also don't want to set your goals in an attempt to imitate pro players. You aren't going to be hitting 10 or 11 CS consistently as an ADC or mid laner under Master Tier. The games are just too chaotic, and if you are hitting those numbers and still losing games, odds are you're AFK farming when the rest of your team is fighting. So instead of shooting for those perfect stats, give yourself a realistic goal. Try to farm 8 or 9 CS per minute, or just have 15 CS above your enemy laner. As far as the damage dealt, there's no real set amount that you should be doing every single game, but if you notice that you're consistently low on the charts, you should review games and try to see where you're going wrong. Now that we've talked about how to set more realistic goals, let's use that as today's question of the day. What rank are you now, and what rank do you want to reach by the end of the season? Let us know your answers in the comments down below. The fifth and final point to get the most out of your solo queue games is learning when to take a mental reset. This is maybe the hardest of all our points to apply. I've seen many people go into full tilt mode and not even realize that it's happening. This isn't referring to in-game tilt. That's important to try to avoid as well, but if your jungler feeds your lane, double buffs, and baits you into dying, ruining your early game, that's kind of an unavoidable type of tilt. Now, what I'm referring to right now is going into a new game tilted, taking your sour attitude from the last game into the next one. But like I said, most people don't even realize when they're tilted. I've had plenty of times where I've had to ask a friend if they're absolutely sure that they are clear-minded and ready to queue up again. And 9 out of 10 times, they say that they're fine. Then 2 minutes into the next game, they blow up at the littlest things. Maybe I just have temperamental friends, I don't know. The thing is, this isn't just some ego problem. It's not like they want to actually admit it. Tilt is just a state of mind that can literally skew your vision of yourself. All you want to do is queue up again and make up the LP that you lost. But then the second something goes wrong in the next game, you feel like you're about to lose even more LP, and then you flip out and make bad decisions. Then you want to queue up even more, and you just have 2 games worth of LP to make up after all. The result is a massive loss streak and maybe even a chat restriction. I've seen people literally fall from Master Shooter Diamond 4 because they don't know when to hang it up for the day. So even if you can't identify when you feel tilted, set some rules for yourself. I have a guideline that I go by when I play ranked. If I lose my very first ranked game, I take a break for about 10 to 15 minutes. If I lose 2 in a row, I take a break for an hour. If I lose the 3rd game when I come back, I just honestly stop for the day. Or if I lose any game or win any game, I just treat myself with boba, because I deserve it. Anyway, if I win a game, I play until I lose 2 games in a row. Even if I go on a huge win streak, say 6 games in a row, I never play after 2 back-to-back losses. Again, I'm not an expert at analyzing myself, so I'd rather give myself some time to decompress and come back when I know for sure that I have a clear head. And sometimes the times listed here aren't enough. Sometimes I'll even take a few days or even a week or 2 off the game or just play the best game mode ever, Ultimate Spellbook. You'd be surprised how much better you play after coming back with a completely fresh mind. In fact, I don't even feel a tad rusty after not touching the game for 2 full weeks. I actually feel like my mind is completely clear, I'm aware of what's going on my map, and my mechanics sometimes feel even cleaner. As for what you do in the off time, that's completely up to you. Play another game, go outside, responsibly, watch a show or movie, or even play on a different account. Though it's not taking a break from League if you play on a different account and play a different role than you're used to, you'll basically be getting a completely different experience. So if you're an ADC main fed up with the supports, or vice versa, go play top lane and hate yourself up there. It's a terrible island where you don't have to rely on a lane partner, but if you lose then it's on you. And that feels even crappier. Feel free to let me know what you guys do to details in the comments down below. And that about wraps things up for 5 ways to get the most out of your solo queue games. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to sub to never miss out on any of our other content like this. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description as well, where you can go ahead and discuss League further or just hang out and be a part of the community. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.